Over the last few months, I feel like I've talked a lot on here about feeling overwhelmed, how there's a lot that's been going on behind the scenes, and even referencing a secret project from time to time. Well, I'm ready to share more today. And as you can probably gather from the title of today's episode, we are leaving. We are leaving the apartment that we've been in for 4.5 years, and there's something new on the horizon. So I'm really excited to finally fill you in and tell you more about what's really been going on and what the last few months have truly looked like for me. Before we get into the big life update, let's do a little create and consume. So, as far as what I was creating this past week, I finally published a blog post, you guys. I feel like the blog has really taken a back seat the last few months, which we'll talk more about later, I'm sure. But one of the things that I love doing when I really am just like, I need to get a post up, it's been too long, is to use content I've already created as a starting point so that it doesn't feel like I'm truly starting from zero. This week, I published a blog post with my 5 best tips for content creators who want to pitch holiday brand partnerships to help them close more deals and make more money in Q4, which is typically a very profitable time for content creators. And this was actually inspired by a YouTube video that I published. I don't even know what year it was. It might have been 2022 or even 2021, but I was just thinking about this as I was planning out some of my own pitches. And obviously, we're about to enter a busy time of year. And I realized that I haven't done a blog post inspired by that YouTube video yet. So basically, what I do is I take the transcript, I put it into ChatGPT, and I ask it to summarize the transcript for me, which essentially gives me like a working outline. And then from there, I go in and write my own content. I would not ever, for Keep Calm and Chiffon, use ChatGPT to like write a blog post for me. That is just not something I do on my personal blog, which has always and is always my own writing. However, when I'm like desperate and in need of just a starting point, it can be really helpful to have that outline. And what I like about doing it this way is also I am asking it to work off of something I've already done. So we're not just like pulling from random parts of the internet. Everything is already something that I have said or something that came up in that video. So that's one of the reasons that I do like using that to speed up my process. So I was able to get that post up. So it's live on my blog now. I can link it in the show notes. And if you're a content creator, definitely check it out. It is not too late to pitch for holiday. Plenty of brands are still figuring out what they're doing. And there's always those last minute campaigns that come up. Okay, now as far as what I have been consuming this week, there's really only one thing that we can talk about because aside from what the rest of this episode is about, this is where my brain has been. And I need to talk to you all about the finale of The Summer I Turned Pretty. So if you have not watched and you don't want spoilers, I am going to put a timestamp in the show notes. If you are listening on Apple/Spotify, I'm going to put timestamps of where you need to stop listening and where it is safe to start listening again. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put right now on the screen what time you can skip ahead to skip the spoiler. Okay, so once again, this is your spoiler warning. I'm about to start talking about this show in 3, 2, 1. Holy mother forking shirt balls. I cannot believe what I have just seen with my own 2 eyes. I mean, I don't even really know where to begin, but this is just, I don't even know what to say, actually. I mean, I feel like we have to start with the dress scene that the whole internet flipped out over and that I myself was watching just like open mouthed. I was like, what am I watching even right now? I actually loved the series finale, and this was before we got confirmation that there's going to be a movie coming out too, because I feel like we have done so much ruining of things that we love, like a little bit of self-sabotage over the years. I feel like one example of this is at the end of Game of Thrones, everyone was still left so unsatisfied with the ending, and I get that on some level, but like I am not going to let anything ruin this show for me. And so I needed to accept by the end of the finale, like as it pans out at the end and we see them at the beach house, that was it, that was all we were getting. It just has brought me such an inordinate amount of joy during a time when I don't know, our First Amendment rights are being attacked and a lot of other questionable shit is going on. And there's just something so cozy and safe feeling about escaping to the world of cousins. I've just like fully, thoroughly enjoyed watching this show. I hated the scene between Belly and Conrad after in her Paris apartment, but I also feel like that was the most critical scene in the whole series potentially to like have a really honest conversation about why they loved each other and whether or not they loved each other because they were told to or because they actually chose to do so. I cried at least like 6 times in this episode. Even Adam and Jeremiah made me cry, you guys. That is saying something. And I even enjoyed Jeremiah being Jeremiah again. Like when he was in season 1 and he came in and he was dancing in his lifeguard outfit during Cotillion and like getting everyone like Jeremiah is a fun guy. He's just not fun when he is with Belly because everything is always so serious with her. So I feel like everyone landed in a good place. I mean, I just absolutely loved this episode. If anyone wants to talk to me about this, please DM me. I mean, I could go on and on about Conrad moments throughout this episode that just like absolutely broke me. I think Christopher Briney is going to have an incredible acting career ahead of him personally. The scene at the dinner table where he passes the joint, the scene when they're literally in Versailles and he's just like looking at her. I mean, I'm a 31-year-old woman who's obsessed with this show about, well, they're not teenagers at this point. They're like in their early 20s, so I guess that's not as bad. Andrew always loves to say that I love like a high school show, which arguably is true. Like Gossip Girl, Gilmore Girls. I do love a high school show, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm like chugging this coffee right now also because I'm recording this on Sunday morning, and this has weirdly become my new podcast recording time because Andrew is training for the Chicago Marathon, as I think I've mentioned before, and his long run days are on Sunday. So today is actually the longest run that he's going to be doing now between now and the marathon, I should say. And then he starts to like taper off as it gets closer, but it's just to confirm that he can like run this kind of distance, which, you know, he's done 2 other marathons. So I know that everything will be good. It's more just a matter of making sure like his shoes feel good and he's got his pace down and kind of working out all of the kinks and stuff so that when it comes to race day, he can just like go and do what he needs to do. But I've been enjoying the Sunday morning recording sessions, but this is the last episode where you're going to see this as the background. That is actually crazy. And I don't know if you can even see right now, but behind me, we don't have our dining table anymore. That has been sold. The TV stand has been sold. We even sold our trash can. We're leaving our current apartment. So that begs the question, if you're leaving, where are you going? Where are you headed next? And I'm so excited to, I'm actually a little nervous right now. I don't know why, but I'm so excited to share that we actually bought our first home here in Hoboken. So as you're listening to this, our lease is officially up at this place and we're starting a brand new chapter. Oh my God, that is actually wild to say out loud in such an official capacity, like sitting here with a microphone right now. And this is something that, oh my God, where do I even start? Well, let me talk first about the decision to stay in Hoboken because I feel like, you know, Andrew and I are both in our early 30s. It's kind of the time where we start to see our friends heading out to the suburbs. You know, there was a time in our 20s where we lived like a 15-minute subway ride from all of our friends. And that was such an incredible time to be able to get together and to hang out and like be super social. And we definitely have seen, especially since the pandemic, a lot of people looking for more space, looking for more quiet, looking for more comfort, and heading out to suburbs, which is obviously completely understandable and something that I know has not just been happening in and around the New York City area, but happens all across the country. So when it came to buying a place, why are we choosing to stay in Hoboken? There are actually a ton of reasons. I think first and foremost, we genuinely love it here. Like, I cannot express enough how much I love living here. Am I going to cry? It just, it really has felt so much like home. And it has been really, truly the best of both worlds in the sense that we get more space here. We, you know, spend less money. We're closer to family. Like some of the things that I know are big reasons why people move to suburbs or move back towards their hometowns. Like we are lucky enough to check some of those boxes off here. but it's still walkable. It's still a city, and it's still so close to New York, which I don't know if you guys remember or if I even really talked about this in vlogs back in the day when we first moved to Hoboken. But I did not take the idea of us moving to Hoboken very well when Andrew first suggested it. And it was his brilliant idea, by the way, that we move here in the first place. So he gets full credit for that. But I was having a really hard time with it at the time because I just had this like very one track mind. New York is the goal. New York is where I need to end up mentality. And it's just something that I had dreamed about like since I was little. I feel like growing up in New Jersey with New York so close, it was always like, oh my God, I just want to be like in the city, you know? And I was being so dramatic about moving to Hoboken, which, for context, if anyone is not familiar with the geography here, I could literally look out my window right now and see part of the city from my window. Like, I am not far by any means whatsoever. But it always just in my head was like, I've already made it, quote unquote, being in New York. Like, why would I go back to New Jersey where I'm from? And as soon as we both came here to just like spend a day and like check out the area, I was basically already sold. I was like, honestly, it is clean, it's nice, it's a city, but it's a lot calmer and like less chaotic than parts of Manhattan and even Brooklyn that I've lived in before. It really just has felt like home over these last 4 years. And again, the fact that we have been able to like improve our quality of life slightly, which I also think is a big reason people want to move to the suburbs. Like when we first moved here and we had a bigger apartment, like Andrew and I both have desks here where we can work from home. We have space to put all of our stuff. For the most part, I could use a little more closet space always, but what girl couldn't? We were able to have a car here. Like we live in a nice building that has amenities. It's been such a good like Goldilocks situation for us where we get a lot of the perks of suburban living, but we are still in a city. Both mine and Andrew's jobs require access to New York City. Like he does have office days, I have events, and all of my work is essentially in the city. It was really important to us to be close and to choose somewhere where we could easily get in and out, where the commuting options were good, and where we wouldn't necessarily have to spend like hours every day commuting. And speaking for myself, like I am a city girl at heart for sure. I get really energized by being in a city and being out and around lots of other people. And then another big draw to us to stay in Hoboken was to buy our first place, but not be so overwhelmed by everything that comes with owning an actual house with like a yard and a garage and a roof and like all these other things that you have to constantly monitor and like be aware of. I always say that when I transferred colleges, if anyone doesn't know, I transferred from Muhlenberg, which is a small liberal arts college in eastern Pennsylvania, to Barnard after my freshman year. And Barnard is in New York City. That's like how I first moved to the city and then subsequently stayed after graduating. I always say that I am really grateful I went to Muhlenberg that first year because I think starting college and moving to New York City at the same time would have been really overwhelming for me. Like Muhlenberg gave me the opportunity to take college classes, learn what was required of me like in those types of rigorous courses, and also balance like a social life and all of that. And if I had just moved to New York City, I feel like I would have been so distracted and like not known how to have a good study system and just would have been wanting to run out and do fun things all the time, which I still managed to do. But like, I think that I would have been really overwhelmed had I moved to the city and started college at the same exact time. I kind of feel similarly with that to us buying an apartment versus a home. Like it's home ownership, but with a little help in the sense that we are in a building where if something is wrong with the roof, that's not specifically our problem. Or even like if we want to travel. I mean, one of the other big things we love about Hoboken is how close it is to Newark Airport and how easy that makes it to get in and out. If we want to go on a trip or something, to just know that we don't have to worry about like, oh, the lawn is probably overgrown right now, or if it's fall and all the leaves are falling and it's clogging up the drain pipes and stuff like that. I don't know. I know that sounds silly, and I know that people who own homes like know how to deal with all of that, but just having a little bit less to worry about mentally with stuff like that was also a big draw for us staying in Hoboken. Not to mention, I mean, Hoboken is such a desirable area that if and when we choose to, move on and do something else, I am confident that we will get a return on our investment. So I could not be more excited or be feeling more like lucky and grateful that everything really aligned and worked out for us to stay in Hoboken, because this is truly like, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the best place that I have ever lived, especially, for my mental health, for my relationships, for everything. Like, it really has just been such a wonderful experience, and I could not be more grateful that we get to stay. Now, is this our forever home? I do not believe that it is. I mean, at a certain point, I do think we will want a house of some kind, and I do think we will grow beyond the walls of our apartment. But as far as the foreseeable future, this is where we plan to be. So hopefully now you guys understand what I've been talking about when I've been saying I've been overwhelmed and there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, because the home buying process is time consuming, it's stressful, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And I empathize with anyone else who's ever been through it, because it definitely takes time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. And the other thing that I can share, although I won't talk too much about this today, just because I have other content and other things planned around this topic, but we have also been doing some renovations to our unit. So that has really been a big way that I've been spending my time the last 2 months, managing contractors, ordering materials, doing design, like actually designing our home. It has been definitely busy, but also really, really exciting and totally different than anything else I've ever really done before. So I can definitely speak more to that in a future episode if you guys have any questions about renovating a home. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but I would love to hear what they are, because I do plan to talk about this in a future episode. And I am also going to be posting a renovation vlog on my YouTube channel where you can see like the process. And that is something I have been filming, but I obviously have not posted yet. I am actually working, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way when I don't have an end product to share with the world, but I will soon. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube on my personal channel, which is just my name, Austen Tosone. That will be coming probably within a week or two at the time you're listening to this. So I can definitely speak to that in another episode. But today I wanted to talk more just about like the home search and the home buying process. And I don't know if I can offer truly words of wisdom, but I did try to round up some of the best like advice we received and some things that actually really helped us like find our home, because I know it can be a stressful process. And I'm by no means an expert, by the way. This is all just from my own experience that I wanted to write down and share, especially because I knew basically nothing going into this process. And I feel like I would have loved to listen to an episode like this, I don't know, back in January, essentially. So I thought I could start out with just a couple of tips for like the general home search process. And I think, first of all, if you are looking alone, you get to make a lot of these decisions by yourself. But if you are looking with someone else, the very first thing you want to make sure you do is to get on the same page of whoever you're looking with, to figure out things like where you ultimately want to look, what you want your budget to be, all of those different things. And this is something Andrew and I spent a lot of time on, a lot of time like thinking about and talking about. And we did consider some suburbs as well. We actually also went out to a bunch of different, I'll call them like commuter towns in New Jersey, to look at different homes in the area too, just to like get a sense of what that would even be like. And we really wanted to make sure that we were exploring all of our different options, even though like I personally was really, really, really hoping for Hoboken and really, really hoping to stay here. I really pushed myself to have an open mind and think not just about what I wanted, but what would be like best for us together, because that is my number one priority as a married person, to make sure that as much as I'm happy, that Andrew is also happy. Like, I really wanted to make sure that if the suburbs would give us like a better quality of life, or like something that we weren't getting in Hoboken, that we explored that fully, because I just want both of us to be happy at the end of the day. So, getting on the same page about all of that stuff was really helpful. And we made lots of different lists. We made little pros and cons lists of different towns, different areas. And one other thing that we did that I think really helped was for any like new neighborhoods that we were looking at, as in anywhere that we haven't lived already, we would really try to go like spend a couple of hours in that neighborhood and kind of pretend like, oh, day in the life of us living here. Like, let's say we woke up here, like, where would we go to get coffee in the morning? Like, what would we do in the afternoon? Like, where would we go for lunch? So we made an effort to do that with a lot of different towns, and we mostly just did this like on the weekends whenever we had time. For some of them we weren't always able to spend like an extended amount of time there, but even like being able to grab lunch somewhere just to walk around, I was looking for like coffee shops and bookstores, that kind of thing, just to see at all like what it would really be like. And if we had ultimately decided on another neighborhood, I would have also loved to even like, I don't know, find a hotel like nearby or that night to even like truly cosplay, like, okay, I'm waking up now, like walk over to the train, like how often do the trains come, or like, okay, I'm gonna go get coffee and then like work from a coffee shop in the morning, because that's what I would do like here in Hoboken. Really just get a sense of like what would my life be like here and like which streets do I like. Andrew and I actually even did that when we lived in Long Island City. Like we walked around the neighborhood and kind of made note of like any areas or any buildings that looked cool to us, or like in an area that we were like, oh, this would be really great. Like it's a block from the train, it's a block from this. Like let's write down this building and see if anything comes up. That's actually how we found our first apartment in Queens. I should say, like our first apartment together before we moved in together. Andrew was living in Manhattan and I was living in Brooklyn. And I feel like once you know that buying is something that you're truly interested in, to just jump in pretty much as soon as you decide that, and to start at least going and looking around, even if it's not exactly the time that you're going to be buying. And for us, like our lease is up this month in September, but I feel like we started looking pretty much at the beginning of this year. So we honestly would just check Zillow pretty religiously. I finally, the day I deleted the Zillow app from my phone was a great day, let me tell you. But yeah, we really just started like attending open houses, and we would go and I would take so many different notes. Like I would literally just open up a new note on my phone. I would put like the address at the top, like whatever the name of the property was. And then I would take notes on like anything and everything that we noticed. And I also took a lot of videos. I definitely suggest this, especially as you get closer to the actual buying process, because I don't know about anyone else who's done the home search, but we went to so many different open houses. I swear we looked at so many different homes and apartments that at a certain point, sometimes they start to blend together. You're like, was this bathroom in this town or was it like the one down the street? And taking the videos and even having like the timestamps of the videos to see like, okay, which apartment was this? Like, where were we? Which unit number is this? What is going on? Was honestly super helpful. I feel like once we actually started going and seeing things for ourselves, it suddenly became more clear like what you like and you don't like, because you can think about it from a conceptual standpoint. You can just sit and stare at a wall in the void and be like, what do I want in a dream home? Or like, what do I want in my first place? And you can start to think of things, but until you see concrete examples to be like, oh, I definitely want an open concept versus closed off. Like, oh, I definitely want, I don't know, stairs. That might matter to some people. I definitely want like a second floor, or I definitely need like this thing. Once you can actually go in and start seeing all the concrete examples of what you don't like, what is a deal breaker, what you kind of don't care so much about, that makes it easier to like find the one as soon as it's right in front of you. So that's why I definitely would say to go to open houses early, even before it's like time to look, because it will still teach you so much about what you do and don't like. And you'll also get a sense of like what looks good on paper or on Zillow, I guess I should say, and what looks good in person. Because there was actually one home in a suburb that I saw it on Zillow and like the price was right, the location was right. And I said to Andrew, I was like, I think we should go see this, like in all seriousness. And this is, again, coming from me who like really wanted to stay in Hoboken, but like thought I found this crazy good deal or hidden gem or whatever. And we did go see the house in person and it was beautiful. It had a lot of character in some ways, but we could see for ourselves that it would have needed quite a lot of work. And like one of the reasons the price was what it was because there were some holes in the side of the house. Like there were some fixtures and features that were pretty old or that would have been needed to be updated. You know, there wasn't central air. So if that's something that we wanted in the future, we would have had to like pay for and install it ourselves. Like there were just a lot of things that once we saw in person, I was able to flip the switch and be like, okay, I now see that like this did look really good and it would be a wonderful home for someone who's like willing to put in a lot of work for like it was like a 5-bedroom house or something. And I just knew that that was going to be like too large of a task to take on, not to mention like would need a lot of money put into it on top of what you're already paying for the house. And also, I think finding a good realtor that you can trust. Now, I got very lucky because we ended up working with a family friend on this. So it was already someone who had been doing this for many years, who's really like seen a lot of things and knew what to look for, and someone who would just check in with us to constantly say like, is this really what you're looking for? Keep this thing in mind. Like I was talking to the selling agent and they said this. You know, if you really want a chance at this, you should put in an offer at this amount. So that was definitely super helpful to have. Now, for any place that we were kind of zeroing in on to be like, oh, this could be like a true possibility for us, I had done a lot of Googling and research and also talked to our realtor about like, what are some good questions to ask when you actually go view different places? Sorry, guys, I'm truly just having a moment of disbelief. Like the fact that I'm actually recording this episode and that we're actually like moving now and that this is all really happening, I'm still just like pinching myself the entire time because obviously we haven't moved yet as you're watching this. And I know that this is happening cerebrally, but like I just still can't believe it in some ways. It's so crazy. Okay, sorry. So, some good questions to ask when you're viewing different places. And like these, I more so saved for like when we actually were getting interested in something, like when something caught our eye and we were like, oh, should we like investigate further? Should we like make it known that we're interested? I feel like pretty much the first thing we always asked was why is the homeowner selling and also what is their timeline? It's not that this really has that big of an impact on like your decision to buy. I just think it's helpful to know, and I would say the two biggest reasons that we heard were like one, this person needs to move for work, like they need to move beyond what they would be able to commute if they stayed here, or they needed a bigger space, which was mostly what we heard in Hoboken because we were looking at primarily apartments, which is understandable. I think also asking like how long the house has been on the market, because if the house has been on the market for I don't know, I feel like things go so quickly here, which is crazy, but understandable just given the supply and demand currently. But if something's been on the market for like a long time, why that might be, like if there is any flexibility for like price drop at that point, or maybe it's just one of those things where it's a fluke and it's been on the market and no one's realized what a great gem it is, and then you have. That actually happened to a friend of mine recently who she just bought a home this year, and I was talking to her about it and she said, yeah, it was one of those ones where I saw it and it had been listed for a while, and it turned out that the person who listed it had bought the house and flipped it, and that person was a realtor, and she was so busy doing open houses and client work that she like hadn't had the time to schedule an open house for that home. So it was just a matter of time, and it was like a beautifully renovated home, like everything was good about it, but it had been on the market for a while, which had probably turned some people off. So I think investigating that can be helpful sometimes too, because I feel like sometimes you see something's been on the market for a long time and you're like, oh, there must be something wrong with it, but that's not always the case. That's the home buying process is so convoluted in some ways, and I feel like it really varies individually, which is why it's hard to give really like specific advice and why I wanted to do just like general tips. Also asking what's included in the home sale as far as like appliances, any furniture and things like that. I feel like generally for homes, appliances are usually included if I'm not mistaken. I mean, for like the kitchen and stuff, ours came with all of the appliances as well as a washer and dryer. And then I remember when we sold my grandmother's house after she moved to an assisted living facility, the people who bought her home were actually interested in a good amount of the furniture too. So I think that was worked out separately on top of the price of the home sale. So you never know, and you can ask what is included. I also think a good question is, are there any known issues with the home? or that could be a number of different things. I mean, one question that came up in Hoboken a lot was, is it in a flood zone? Which, I mean, 90% of Hoboken is in a flood zone. That's something that we know and understand about the area and know how to navigate after living here for so long. Any other hazards with the home? Like, I don't know if you see a big tree leaning over the roof of the house, maybe that's something to ask about. Or also if there's any stigma with the home, which could mean like, that someone died there, or hopefully not this, but like what if a crime was committed there or something? Just like to be aware of all of that before you actually purchase something. And also asking, what will the monthly payments look like? And that will vary obviously based on like how much you can put down on the property in terms of what your monthly payments will be, but what else in addition to the cost of the home? Are there taxes? Is there an HOA fee you have to look at? All of that other stuff is good to know up front so you can truly understand like what would it cost each month. And then kind of a quick list of rapid fire, just other things to kind of note or pay attention to as you're at an open house. Check and see how your cell reception is there. I know that sounds very like it will be low on the list, but like honestly, I would want to know if I have spotty cell service in my own home, I would like to be aware of that. Also, if you can see as you walk through rooms how many outlets are in each room, can you open and close doors and cabinets to see how they work? Make sure everything's like screwed on properly and that there's no like, I don't know, squeaking or like loose things. Also, if you're like me and you're sensitive to noise, see if you can hear anything that you don't like while you're in the home. So if you are touring a house and you're at an open house and you're on the ground floor and people are walking around upstairs, how loud are there footsteps, or is there any squeaking or anything like that? Andrew and I actually toured one apartment in Hoboken that I thought was so cute. I kind of was getting excited about, and we toured the apartment. It was over the summer, so it was warm, so the AC was on. And then when the AC shut off, suddenly we could hear every little thing that the upstairs neighbors were doing. And I was like, oh God, I think that just like made this a no for me, because unless the air was on, which kind of served as a bit of like a white noise buffer, and that may not be all the time, but the fact that we could even hear footsteps of just people like walking around, like I think they were having a party and people over, which like I believe it was a weekend, so fine, whatever. But hearing all of that noise as soon as the air was off, I was like, oh God, I don't know if I could do that like all the time. Also, what's the street noise like? Are there any appliances that are just like loud while they're not even doing anything? Like sometimes a refrigerator can make a lot of noises, I feel like. I mean, the financial side is obviously a big part of the home buying process. And again, I feel like this is really personal for everyone and so individually tailored. But just to share like a couple of very broad and general tips as far as like financial planning that we did ahead of this home buying process, I think the biggest thing was truly just like knowing this was a shared goal of ours. So we could both actively try to save as much as possible towards this goal. I think that, like with any goals, writing it down, making sure you're aware of it, like every time you go to make a purchase of some kind and thinking, like, does this serve me or does this really help me get to my big picture goal, is something that can be really helpful to just remind yourself of in your day to day life. Something else that Andrew and I have been diligent about doing over the last few years is investing money in the stock market. And I know that can be scary and overwhelming. But if you guys remember, I did an episode earlier this year, I want to say, called The Hot Girl's Guide to Surviving a Recession. And actually, in the episode at the end, Andrew had given a couple of general tips for investing for beginners. So I can link that episode in the show notes if you didn't get a chance to listen for that. Even just earning a little bit of interest back on your money can make a big difference over time. So that is something we have been pretty diligent about and like tried to invest as much as possible. It's not always easy when your cost of living is higher, but just even making an effort like a little bit here and a little bit there can definitely like snowball and grow over time. And we also at the end of the day did a good amount of research just about the finances of buying a home to kind of understand what the various options were, like what is considered competitive to put down on an apartment or a home in this area, what we could realistically afford, what that would look like in terms of our monthly expenses and all of that. So just really doing a lot of research to make sure that we were getting something that made sense for us. And then some other just like small shifts that I was personally making to like save towards this purchase because obviously it's like the biggest purchase either of us have ever made. One big one was cooking at home and kind of trying to like romanticize cooking at home. This is hard for me because I love eating out, I love restaurants, but like really just making the effort to challenge myself to be like, what are some tasty and easy, good meals that I can cook at home? This is something I really started doing, I would say, during COVID, obviously, because suddenly I was eating out and getting takeout way less, but really making an effort to cook at home like Sunday through Thursday. And again, I'm not trying to like deprive myself of anything here. Like we would usually still get pizza on Fridays and maybe either go out or order in something on Saturday night. Like that was enough for me. That was like I'm getting what I want, but I'm not like depriving myself here. And I do think that eliminating the little indulgences that, make life worth living is not something that you should have to do 24/7, but even like for me limiting myself to like okay, I want to work from a coffee shop one day this week. So, like, Thursday, I don't know, afternoon is going to be when I go work from a coffee shop this week. And, like, that's my treat coffee for the week versus most of the time I'm just drinking, black coffee from my Keurig at home anyway. So, again, just like making more of an effort to choose the cheaper option for a lot of things that would result in saving more that we were able to put more towards our home. Another big one for me personally has just been opting for public transit over Ubers. And this is sometimes tempting, especially if you're in the city late at night and you're like, oh, I could be home in 15 minutes if I call an Uber. But for me, that's just like an expense that's so easy for me to cut down on because that becomes a question of time versus money. And as someone who is, self-employed, doesn't have any kids yet and all of that, like my time is a resource that I'm willing to trade for stuff. So if it's going to take 40 minutes for me to get home on the bus versus 15 minutes in an Uber, unless I'm like really, really beat or like need to get home quickly for some reason, I don't have any problem sitting on the bus or walking home. Like I love walking. I love getting my steps in. Being in a walkable area is one of the best parts to me about living in Hoboken. And the fact that I can so easily walk to buses or walk to the path or whatever it is here means that like I always have an option via public transit to get home. So why not take it? I love listening to podcasts or even reading on the train. And I don't know, I just am very used to public transit at this point. I lived in New York City for 8 years. I've been in Hoboken for 4.5. Like I know my routes, I know my trains, I know my buses. That is definitely one though where I see a lot of influencers who I follow are like constantly Ubering places. And again, sometimes I have an Uber gift card or sometimes a brand gives me an Uber credit and I do a little treat myself moment. But I feel like for the most part, I get by just fine taking the bus. I feel like every 6 months also, I like to go in and review my subscriptions for things and just be like, is there anything I'm paying for that doesn't currently make sense for me to be paying for? And, some things are non-negotiable, like YouTube Premium and Canva, like over my dead body, will you take those away from me? But other things, maybe you're just not using as much and you can take a break from, or you can cancel altogether. And obviously, you can cut back in little ways. And like I said, I'm not trying to deprive joy from my life by any means. It's just that we've had this like big, looming, large goal for so long that we've been working towards. But even in addition to like cutting back a little bit here and there for some of the fun stuff that, again, I think makes life worth living, and I'm not trying to deprive myself of completely, has been living below our means for the last few years. I know a lot of my friends who rent and who have like 2 or 3 bedroom apartments that they're renting. And we have been in a 1 bedroom this entire time and we've made it work just because we have seen the increase to go from 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom in the area and the type of building that we've lived in. And every year when our lease renewal has come up, and it's been like, yes, we kind of want more space in the short term, but like think of the long term and what that would mean in terms of what we would be able to do later on. And yeah, like could we have technically moved sooner or upgraded sooner? Yeah, but I feel like we just always had this goal in the back of our heads. And in terms of the short term, we made it work and we've been happy here. But now at this point, the fact that we will have more than one room is really, really exciting. And I feel like it's going to feel like a whole different setup in the new place. All of that to say, we are moving into our new home this month, which is unbelievable, truly. Speaking of appliances making weird noises, my fridge is currently freaking out. I don't know what about. And I am looking forward to recording the podcast from a space that is not right next to the kitchen, as I've been doing in this apartment since we've lived here. And I'm excited for a little bit more space, a new podcast setup, hopefully coming soon, and so much more on the horizons. I can't believe I finally get to like share this news with you. I still can't believe it's all real, truly. Like it does feel like a dream in many ways. And I am excited for all of the good things to come and all of the memories that we're going to make in our first home. And I really can't thank you enough for just listening today and for being here. And I'm super excited to share more.